Jonathan Larson, managing editor of the Young Turks, and I want to talk today about impeachment. You may have seen this just happened, that Don McGahn, the senior counsel for the White House, declined to show up for a scheduled 10 a.m. Eastern Time hearing of the Judiciary Committee, despite having been subpoenaed. Sent a letter saying, "I feel obligated to adhere to the instructions of Trump's lawyer and not appear." And the other news that's coming out today that's relevant to this is that last night, for the first time apparently, Democrats, House Democrats, including some of the leadership team, met with Speaker Pelosi and said, we need to start moving down the path towards impeachment. Impeachment, of course, being one of the tools that that Congress has as part of its oversight function. And what I wanted to talk about today was Pelosi's reasons for pushing back. And they were twofold, but they fall into the same theme. One, according to the Washington Post, which broke this story and talked to people who were at the meeting, one was that an impeachment inquiry, just the inquiry, would distract from ongoing investigations that are being done in the House by Democrats who obviously have the majority in the House. The other is that the beginning of impeachment hearings would make it tougher for the Democrats' message to get out there. She cited things like an LGBTQ bill that they just passed. Obviously, healthcare is another issue. There are a lot of things that Democrats are trying to message on right now. And impeachment hearings would kind of suck up all the oxygen in the room and leave everyone talking about nothing else but. And what I wanted to say about that is, you don't get to make that call, right? The constitutional oath that you take doesn't say unless it's politically inconvenient. If there were a Democratic president, then clearly impeachment proceedings by Democrats would distract from the message, right? Would be politically harmful. Too bad. That's not an option you get to call here. Whether it's politically inconvenient is not supposed to be part of the decision-making process. There's some prosecutorial discretion here, right? Prosecutors, in some cases, have some discretion about which cases they're going to look into. And Democrats, with impeachment is fuzzy. Democrats have similar discretion there. What they don't have is a norm that says you don't have to practice oversight if it's politically harmful to you. That's the point of it, is that you're supposed to do it regardless. And I'm not making an argument for impeachment here. I'm just, because I don't know. I'm not an expert. I'm not a constitutional scholar. I haven't investigated most of the stuff that's being looked at here. But the point is, you're not allowed to use that reasoning in your decision making about impeachment. And the bigger point I wanted to make is that it's about managing outcomes, right? It's for the greater good. So if the fear, right, of course, is that if we launch impeachment proceedings, well, that fires up his base, it detracts from our message, and Trump wins, and that's a bad outcome. But we've seen in recent history, time and again, painfully, what happens when people in positions of power go outside the norms, operate outside the system in order to manage outcomes. That's literally what 9/11 was conducted to make us do, was to stop operating by our norms. And we obliged, because we were managing the outcomes that were living in our fears, our political fears, the fears of our leaders, the fears of the people overall, right? People in Nebraska were terrified that terrorists were coming there. And so they were willing to avoid that outcome. They were willing to do what it took. James Comey, right? If you read his book, not recommending it, but I did. If you read his book, he says, I don't do politics, but I had to do something to protect the reputation of the FBI. This is going towards why he was talking about things in public that normally the FBI didn't. I had to protect the reputation of the FBI. That's managing outcomes. You don't get to do that. You have to suck it up and do the job, even if you think that, even if you have good reason to think the outcomes might be bad. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is that there's the analytical point that there's nothing enshrined in congressional powers that says political outcomes that you don't like absolve you of the responsibility to pursue your oversight functions. And P.S., even if it did, we don't know what the outcomes of an impeachment inquiry would be. We don't know what the outcome of an impeachment vote in the House would be. We don't know whether the Senate would go along. We don't know whether these things would even enhance Democratic messages. For all we know, the impeachment proceedings would trigger a cause of events that do exactly what she wants, right? This certainty about how events are going to play out is bizarre to me 2 years after the electoral victory of Donald Trump. So that's my little rant, I guess, about the Democratic reasoning. You can think that there's a case for impeachment proceedings. You can think that there's a case against impeachment proceedings. But what you shouldn't be doing is applying a litmus test that you wouldn't accept if the other party were doing it for their own president, right? If you wouldn't accept them doing it for their own president, you shouldn't accept Democrats doing it for the president of the opposing party. So those are my thoughts on impeachment, and I doubt the speaker is listening, but we'll see what's happening. And one quick footnote is, it's quite possible that she's playing 11th level chess here and holding back the tide in favor of impeachment, forcing it to build up enough popular support that then there is no political price. It's just a political gimme. It's a fait accompli. So maybe that's what she's doing. But even if she's doing that, that's not okay either. That's politics. That's managing outcomes. So the awful, horrible takeaway message from this is simply, sorry guys, you got to do your job.